Hello everyone and welcome to week 9 of our journey through modern web development. Today we are diving into one of the most powerful and widely used libraries in the front-end world, that is React.js. In this first part, we are going to focus on understanding what React is, how it works under the hood, and why it has become such a game changer for building user interfaces. Let's start by walking through what we will be covering in this session. First, we will define the main objective of the lesson. Then, we will get introduced to React.js itself, what it is, who built it and why it is so widely used. After that, we will look at the key reasons developers choose React over other solutions. We will also break down the differences between the traditional DOM and virtual DOM, which is core to React's performance, and finally, we will wrap it up with an overview on how React handles rendering behind the scenes. The main goals of this session are twofold. First, we want to build a solid understanding of what React is, why it's used. Second, we will explore a concept called the virtual DOM, which might sound technical, but it's the secret sauce behind React's performance. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what makes React special, especially in terms of how it renders user interfaces efficiently. So, what is React exactly? React is an open source JavaScript library that was developed by Facebook. It was initially built to address performance and scalability issues Facebook was facing with its complex user interfaces. Since then, React has expanded well beyond web development. With React Native, developers can use the same principles and even some of the same code to build native mobile apps, making it truly cross-platform. What really sets React apart is its large and active community. This means there are tons of libraries, tools, tutorials and support available. It is incredibly flexible and fast, and at its core, React is built around components, that is small reusable pieces of UI logic that you can think of like building blocks. This component driven approach is what makes React ideal for building single page applications or SPAs where the content updates dynamically without reloading the entire page. Now, why use React? Let us look at why developers love using React. There are three major benefits I want to highlight, that is fast rendering, modular code via components, huge ecosystem and community. First, fast rendering. React uses a virtual DOM to optimize UI updates instead of reloading or updating the whole page every time something changes. React just updates the specific part of the UI that changed. This makes React blazing fast even for large and complex applications. Second, the modularity. With React, you build your UI as a collection of components. We also call it as Lego blocks. Each one manages its own structure, styles and logic like self-contained Lego blocks. This makes your code much easier to maintain and scale as your application grows. And third, the ecosystem. React is a part of rich ecosystem. Tools like React Router, Redux for state management, Next.js for server-side rendering and Tailwind CSS for styling all integrate well with React. Plus, the huge community means that whatever you are trying to build, there is probably already a tool or a tutorial out there to help you. Before we dive deep into virtual DOM, let's quickly refresh what the traditional DOM or document object model is. Think of DOM as a tree-like structure. Okay. Think of DOM as a tree-like structure that represents the elements of the web page. Here you can see we have one web page, so you can see the tree-like structure for that. Here it says document, then we have this HTML element, inside this we have this head element, body element. Okay, inside this head we have title element, then we have title. In the body we have h1 element, then we have anchor tag, and you can see the content for that. So DOM is basically a tree-like structure that represents the elements of a web page. In vanilla JavaScript, we interact with it using functions like get element by id but here's the problem, in large applications, updating the DOM can be slow and complex. Every change, even small ones, can cause the entire tree to be reevaluated and redrawn. This not only affects the performance but also makes the app harder to debug and maintain. Here's where the virtual DOM comes into play, and this is where React shines. Instead of interacting directly with the real DOM, React creates a lightweight copy of it, that is the virtual DOM, and stores it in memory. Every time the state of the component changes, React updates this virtual DOM first, then using a process called diffing, which is an algorithm, React compares the new virtual DOM with the previous one to find out what actually changed. This way, React calculates the minimum number of updates required through a process called reconciliation. React then applies only those changes to the actual DOM, making updates incredibly fast and efficient. This approach means smoother UI updates, especially in apps with complex interfaces, and dramatically reduces the number of costly real DOM operations. So now, let's summarize the key differences between the real DOM and virtual DOM. The real DOM is heavy and slow to update. Any change can require a lot of computation and repenting. On the other hand, the virtual DOM is faster because it works in memory, calculates only necessary updates, and makes React apps feel smooth and responsive. This is one of the core architectural decisions that makes React such a great choice for modern web development. Finally, let's take a look at the React rendering flow. This will help you see the bigger picture of how React processes UI updates. It starts with component creation. When the app loads or data changes, React components are instantiated or re-rendered. Next, React builds or updates the virtual DOM. Then it performs diffing, that is comparing the new virtual DOM with the previous one, and figures out what is changed. This leads to the process called reconciliation, where only the necessary updates are made to the real DOM. This whole process is super efficient and it happens so fast that users perceive it as seamless and responsive interaction. And that wraps up our introduction to React.js Fundamentals Part 1. Today we covered what React is, why it's so widely used, and the crucial difference between the real DOM and virtual DOM. We also learned how React's rendering flow helps build fast, scalable and responsive applications. In the next part, we will explore JSX and how to build actual components using React. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next session.